I feel like a bit of a baby when I jump into an armchair. I realise how short I am. You know, I'm like a little kid jumping onto a sofa or something, you know. Although if I was a little kid and this was a sofa, I'd be a really big kid. You know what I mean? If I made the sofa look like an armchair.
Yeah, you'd be like one of those like freaky babies.
I'd be one of those. I don't know if there is a baby even big enough to make any sofa look like an armchair.
You'd be like one of those people where they have like the illness where they're like a fully grown man but they're like tiny. Like
Jack from the movie Jack. We should review the movie Jack. By the way,
like the creepy like pedo one.
Well, I wouldn't say it's the creepy pedo one necessarily.
Well, it is because he's like a little boy, and then like doesn't like a lady shag him. Does a teacher shag him? Is she a teacher?
No, the teacher likes him, I think, but he kisses like a prostitute. And
I thought they shag.
I don't think they shag. I think he kisses her, and then he's like, she tasted like cigarettes, and then like it's a bit weird, yeah. And then there was a bit where he gives her his. Do you know what this is about in the mix?
Okay, yeah.
Let's get to in the mix.
But we should watch that. But I don't think that's not a bad film, is it?
Jack, I think it's one of those ones that is bad, even though like it maybe the reviews didn't reflect that. I think it is bad. I think
a little bit like Benjamin Button. Everyone always talks about Benjamin Button like it's like a masterpiece. Like Benjamin Button is honestly it's like a comedy.
It's silly in the same way that Benjamin Button is. Also silly. Benjamin Button is I'd say Benjamin Button is directly in between Jack and The Irishman. If you combine The Irishman and Jack, you get Benjamin Button. Anyway, we watched In the Mix for the second time today. Second time in what? In like 2 weeks?
I think probably less than 2 weeks. What I find initially quite amusing is that Wikipedia really leaned in quite heavily into calling this an American romantic crime comedy drama. And like that gives it sort of like legitimacy that I feel like it doesn't warrant. But then I was thinking to myself, like, what else would I describe that film? Like that is what it is, but like
I think it's the mixing of the terms crime and drama, because the crime drama, it makes it sound like The Sopranos or The Wire, and needless to say, a film where one of the mobsters is called Fat Tony is nothing like The Sopranos.
Well, it's a little bit like The Sopranos.
Well, there is a character called Tony who is fat in The Sopranos, but he's not called Fat Tony.
No.
And I think they were careful to avoid such cliches in The Sopranos. So you've got the blurb there, have you?
So, okay, Daryl Williams, a DJ at a popular New York nightclub, gets involved with the mob when he saves the mob boss's life. As a result, Daryl becomes the bodyguard for the mob boss's daughter, Dolly. As they spend time together, Daryl and Dolly grow closer and closer.
Yeah. So the film starts with a club scene.
Yeah.
Usher is DJing at the club. And I feel like the logical thing to do, because the film is kind of meant to be like, it's Usher kind of as Usher, you know? I feel like the logical thing would have been for him to have been a singer, like in Glitter, you know, Mariah Carey's a singer. I feel like they considered that, and they felt that that was too much effort, and that being DJing is not only easy to do, but it's very easy to convey on screen. And with the singing, there's a lot more like, does he have a record label? What songs is he going to sing? Is Usher really going to sing them?
Whereas he's just like
DJing,
a sort of like DJ.
He just stands behind the decks and they can go, he's a DJ. And you're like, oh, he appears to be DJing.
Yeah.
And anyway,
I think it was the right sort of directorial decision.
Based on the quality of the film and the sort of effort level that they knew
sort of
that
world
they were willing
building
to put into it. I think they thought, DJ, that's good enough. And I think that's how most people get into DJing as well. They go, DJing, yeah, sure. That's easier than, you know, doing a real form of music. So there's a club scene and you're seeing Usher DJing. Kevin Hart is there and is immediately being very annoying. Like Kevin Hart at the best of times is quite an irritating man. But in this, he's immediately very annoying.
Bombastic.
Yeah. I would say he's not big enough to be bombastic. I would say childlike and irritating.
Okay, yeah.
And then we see some mobsters. They're getting ready outside and they're talking about guns and have you got your gun and stuff. And they go to the door and there's a big bouncer there and the bouncer says, name? And the mobster says, Beretta, and shows his gun. And the bouncer just lets him in.
Terrible bouncer, should be immediately fired.
This is the United States of America. The fact that, you know, in England, I could understand if you go, look, mate, I've got a fucking gun. They're going to be like, you know what? All right, I'll let you in. I'm going to run away and call the police after, but you get in there, pal, because, you know, I don't have a gun.
Yeah.
I feel like in the United States of America, a guy in a suit showing you a gun under his... I feel like you're just going to think, you know, I'm a bouncer. I've dealt with organised crime. I've probably got a gun, or if not, there's one inside. I don't really have to be afraid.
I mean, what's he being paid for?
What's he being paid for? Yeah, it's like, you got a gun. Oh.
Just a Beretta,
Yeah, a bunch of ladies
Get
in
him a
there.
friend Eagle as well. And
Yeah, go in there. Eagle?
Desert Eagle.
Desert Eagle. Okay,
Yeah.
right. Just the last name.
If I said get in there, my friend Desert, it'd just be a bit weird.
Desert Eagle as if you went to boarding school with him.
Yeah.
Eagle! That's what boarding school guys do. They all refer to each other by their last names.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so he goes. They let him in, and then we're thinking, oh, what's going to happen? Is there going to be a mob hit? And then they approach Usher
as he's DJing.
And there's this very strange thing in this club scene. The noise is very relative. Did you notice this? The level of noise is very relative to what's going on in the scene. So initially they're like, hey, you got earplugs? It's going to be loud in there. And they go in, it's like boom, boom, boom. And then they go over to Usher, and they're talking quieter than we're talking now. They're talking to Usher, and they're like, hey, we need you to DJ at this family event. And Usher's like, yeah, man, no problem. You guys are family or whatever.
And the music is like so quiet.
And the music's just in the back. And it's like, he's on stage DJing. All these people are dancing here.
Yeah, and like they've just seen these like mob guys get up on the stage.
You see these mob guys get up on stage with big
like,
suits and jackets. Yeah, looking very intimidating.
Like, it's not like Usher's off to the side. Like, he's fully on the stage, like in front of everyone.
And suddenly, it's like, so when they were filming this, presumably they had this barely audible music. And there's all these extras in the crowd, just like, yeah.
Money's no object.
I'll do it for free.
Say what?
No. Me and Junior's family go way back.
So yeah, that's very confusing. You know, they couldn't even be bothered. They couldn't go, hey, in this scene, I think given that the whole point of the scene is that there's loud music playing and we're in a club, we should turn the music up and you should have to shout over the music.
Or be like, put Kevin Hart on the decks and like, let's go speak like, but to be honest, I don't think this film's really...
Go into the back, yeah. And even
then...
like
I said, like, I think world building and, like, general kind of, like, common sense decisions and, like, sort of coherence isn't really the strong point
I
of
think
this
they
film.
were like, get Usher in, do some racial humour, that's good enough for them. I think that was the feeling. So anyway, yeah, basically the last thing to note about this scene is... we're introduced to another character who comes in with the mobsters. So the mobsters, they appear threatening, and it turns out actually that Usher knows them because he's a friend of this mafia family for some reason, even though he's not involved in crime. And he's like, oh no, I'll do the show for free. And Kevin Hart's like, what? So he agrees to do the show. And then we're, and by these mobsters who, they know him and they're like family apparently.
But they can't
just ring him or contact him in some way. They have to turn up and threaten a bouncer with their gun.
Yeah.
And get on stage and ruin his performance, making it all mobbed up, and then ask him that way, somehow using this amazing ability to speak through the noise. So these mob guys come on stage, and then we're introduced to another character who is the son of the mob boss. The mob boss is not there. We're introduced to his son, and he's like a very sort of generic kind of wigger character. And this was, I think, 2006, right? 2005. Wiggers were a very popular thing back then.
Yeah.
It was when Ali G...
sort of like hot top... social topic.
It was seen as, it was a bit like a rapping grandma, or like a cool old man, or like a dog that wants to hump thing, which is in this movie.
In this film, yeah.
It was one of those
or like
things,
farting, which again is in this film.
Yeah, it was like like it was a silly easy gag as to get like a white guy who's like faux shizzle yo, and like that was like, you know, to wear a cap sideways in the 2000s was very popular.
Or in this film where he wears a do-rag for quite a lot.
He wears a do-rag, which I felt was like a step too far for this kind of character.
There's quite a lot of moments in this film where it's like they've gone a step too far.
There's a lot of awkward racial stuff in this movie.
It's really funny because when I was looking up about this film and I was like looking up for like reviews and stuff and what other people thought, there's a Christian like movie consensus website, and it's got in the mix listed, and it says that you should use this film as a way to discuss racial stereotypes with your children.
As a good thing.
Yeah, like, you know, to discuss like, you know, like the like stereotyping like races, like why it's a bad thing to do.
So they're saying the movie's bad.
Yeah, but they're saying it's bad, but it's good to like talk to your children about like racial stereotypes.
Say, you look at this piece of shit movie with Usher, and the kids are just like, Usher. And if you're like 7, you might think this movie was okay. I think this would have been one of those movies when I was a kid that just anaesthetized me. I think it would have been one of those films I would have
watched loads just because it would have like numbed the pain of like my childhood existence.
But it wouldn't have been one of my favourites.
No.
But I just thought any movie I had on DVD or video
And
was
it's not.
good.
It would have been a good movie to like fall asleep to because
Yes.
there's not any like alarming audio or like any like it's just very like you put it on at least the first time you put it on like you're very just like numbed.
It's good to fall asleep to in the sense that like being dehydrated helps you fall asleep. Where like your brain is not getting the stimulation it requires and the sort of juice it requires, and you're a bit just like, and the whole movie you're kind of like, all right.
Yeah.
And you're a bit sort of like, okay, there's nothing too exciting about it and nothing is really stimulating you, so it would be easy to fall asleep to for sure. So a quick note on the generic sort of Wigger character who's the mob boss's son.
What's his name again? Junior?
Maybe Junior. And I feel that this character is somewhat Jar Jar Binks-esque. I feel he really fits into the Jar Jar mold of a character who you're supposed to love, you know?
Yes,
The
absolutely.
idea is like, wait till the audiences see this guy.
Yeah, like the kids will love him.
The
kids will love him, but the grown-ups will love him
The
as well.
grown-ups will love him too. He'll win you over.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be the mob boss's son, but he wants to be hip-hop, yo.
Yeah.
And he's like, what?
And like the kids will like the fact that he likes the hip-hop, and the parents will be able to relate to like, oh gosh, these
My
young
kid.
whippersnappers that like their hip-hop. Yeah.
And then whenever anything happens, it'll be like, yo, come on, man.
He's meant to be
Don't
the
play
comic
me like
relief.
that, fool.
Yeah,
He's the
yeah.
comic relief of the movie. And much like Jar Jar, you know, the guy playing him put a lot of enthusiasm and effort into the role, and you can tell there's a slight look behind his eyes of like, this is shit. But there's also another part of him who's like, this is my chance
It's
to
a
make
sort of
everyone
like-
laugh. And it's I would say an admirable performance by someone
kind
who
of
was
the
very
dark
miscast.
abyss in his pupils of like mild regret and like that feeling of like I shouldn't be doing this right now. Like that's the kind of
I feel it's probably, I would say more accurate would be just wishing it was a bit different. I feel there's a part of him, and at the end of the day, he's miscast. He shouldn't be playing this character. He's a very odd choice for the character. I don't know if it's eyeliner or he just has very thick eyelashes. But
he
there's
might just have like
something-
very luscious, thick Italian American eyelashes.
He really tries. He's
I'll
very
put a picture of him here again.
'cause
We can focus in on the eyelashes.
as played out as that kind of character is, it was in like every comedy back then.
Yeah.
It can be funny, and it sometimes is funny. But the problem with this guy is it's so bad.
Yeah.
And it's so
Just like quite painful. Like it's just painful and clunky.
Well,
and
it's like someone flicked through MTV for like 20 minutes. They'd never seen hip hop before, and they were like,
Yeah.
I get the picture. Okay, baggy
put
clothes.
him in a do-rag and
Put
make
him in
him
a
say like for
do-rag,
shizzle and
for
stuff.
shizzle.
Yeah.
That's a thing that no one has ever actually
Yeah.
said, but for shizzle, kids will laugh at that. 7-year-olds will find it funny, just like Jar Jar, where
Yeah.
it's like make him, you know, stick his tongue out and do
Yeah.
a backflip and fall in a pile of poo, and kids will laugh. So we got that. Then what? Then where are we going?
Well, then we like, they're in the, so basically, he's getting hired by the mob boss because his mob boss's daughter, Dolly, is like coming back from like law school, and they're having like a party, and they want Usher to go there and like DJ at the party. But it's a very odd decision because it's like a very rich, like you would assume, millionaire, like mob boss family. And when Usher's there, the DJ, like the songs he's putting on are like, you know, like they're like fancy, like almost like classical, like Frank Sinatra type music. And
So
it's like
you could just whack on a CD.
or
like-
just be like, you know, these guys got money. Like, why wouldn't they just like get like a Frank Sinatra impersonator to play these songs? So that already is like a bit odd, but it's a little bit like, okay,
Wait,
cool.
do you mean get a Frank Sinatra impersonator to put the songs on a
No,
CD?
to do the songs
To
live.
actually
Yeah,
sing?
yeah.
Well,
Why
they
the fuck would they do that?
I think an impersonator is a bit like-
it would be very
like,
childish
what-
to get a Frank
That's the
Sinatra
kind of
impersonator.
ostentatious thing the
Yeah.
mob might actually
Yeah,
do. They're like,
yeah.
yo, we got this guy. He looks just like Frankie, and he's got the CDs, man. He's putting them on. It's like Frank's there putting his own CDs on.
Yeah.
That's luxury, man, because they don't really know how to really be classy.
No.
But, I mean...
I don't want to get on the wrong side of the mob.
Of the mob, no, yeah, fair. I mean, they're
That's-
notoriously prevalent today.
Yeah, they are.
Particularly where we live in
Yeah.
Spain.
It
Yeah,
could be summer
so
holiday.
that is an odd choice. I feel like really, if you want the oldies, you don't really get a DJ, and as you say, if
No.
you do, you don't get Usher.
You don't get like an urban one, you know. You don't get
Yeah,
like
basically, yeah.
Is this scene with the weird mirror shot?
No, that's later. We'll get
Okay,
to the
we'll
weird
get
shots.
into the weird mirror
we
shot.
must talk about Dolly.
Yeah, Dolly is just a very they tried to make her sort of like an Italian American girl next door type.
I would say more like a princess.
Yeah, like a
Daddy's little girl.
Yeah, daddy's little girl, princess, but like also girl next door type. And instead, what they've managed to achieve is to make a really unlikable, annoying, just character with like zero emotional depth. And
unlike was I've got Dolly, incredibly unlikable, horrible person. Supposed to be spunky and peppy, but is spoiled, irritating, useless, horrible voice, totally unpleasant character. She's the worst part about the film. She's a horrible person. She's a demanding...
Yeah, she's a real brat, really.
Sort of spoiled, rude, unpleasant brat. She does nothing. Like, she provides nothing for anybody.
Yeah.
And the whole world revolves around her, and the whole movie revolves around her needs.
And it would be fine if that is just who she was as a character, but they're really trying hard throughout this whole movie to like position her as like the dream girl, and like, you know, Usher is like madly in love with her, and like, you know, her father loves her so much, and like she's just this they really missed the mark on that character.
And if she was like really attractive, you'd be like, all right, well, she's a spoiled brat, but she's really attractive, and also, you know, she comes from a rich family, so it's understandable that he would really like her. But it's like all these hot women are obsessed with him.
She's fine looking, but they just had made a lot of like quite strange decisions with her. Like at one point she's wearing a fedora.
Yeah.
Which I think even like for the time was even quite an odd choice to put
at that time fedoras were oddly popular.
Like a mafia's daughter.
They hadn't yet become a Reddit thing, and it was more like kind of like, tonight's gonna be a good night, and you had like a fedora on. That song was a bit later actually, but
I don't know, a mafia daughter like from law school,
stronger bread, and you'd have the Kanye
but
glasses.
She's like a
and
law
fedora.
School graduate, like she's like.
Yeah, but she's on a night out.
I just think, no, she wasn't even on a night out. She was just like day-to-day life.
Like dinner, weren't
yeah,
they,
day-to-day life wearing a fedora. I don't know. I just personally feel that was a slightly weird costuming decision.
Yeah.
And
it's
then also...
It's certainly not something that's ever made a woman look sexier,
no,
I would say.
No.
They might have gotten away with it, but that's you know...
I think if you show me a hot woman wearing a fedora, I'll show you a woman who looks hotter without a fedora on.
Show me a woman who look hotter with a do-rag.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. Or like you know those basket fruits?
Yes. Yeah, that would be good. She should have worn something like that.
It's honestly sexier to wear a basket of fruits than a fedora.
She should have been like, she's had a gap year in Africa, and she's gotten really into like the authentic clothes, and she's wearing like a kufi and like one of the big tall things, and very colourful, and she's kind of flexing on Usher a bit. Usher's like, I don't even know what this stuff is. You're kind of pissing me off.
Well, she's just carrying around the big pots of water on her head.
Yeah, and Usher's like, I don't know, I'm so confused by this. So,
and also at one point as well, she has very oddly tall hair, and she looks like I don't know if you've seen this film, but she looks like the lady alien from Mars Attacks when she's in the human dress up. Really, it's what her hair just really. That's what that's what makes me think of.
Before we move on from Dolly, talk to me about the relationship between Dolly and her father.
Let me look at you. May I have this dance?
Yes.
I mean, it's odd and strange in the way that any like overly close father-daughter relationship is odd and strange and sort of mildly incestuous. I'm not really. I just like all like every character's relationship and every character's kind of interactions with one another are like really kind of like teaspoon like deep in their in their depth.
I would say that the relationship between the two of them in some ways was quite realistic, but if you're going to portray it as realistic, you have to portray it as correctly as nauseating as that is, and we're supposed to feel it's nauseating, but we're not. We're supposed to think it's cute, the way that her and Mr. P, who's played by Chaz Palminteri, the way that they interact with each other is supposed to be sort of cute, and it's incredibly disgusting to watch them speak to each other, and incredibly disgusting to watch them act like a couple.
Seems like it was only yesterday I wake up with you in the middle of the night and singing you some Sinatra, putting you back to sleep.
So you're just feeling nostalgic, huh?
And this happens in real life, but in something like The Sopranos, they would show you this, and the idea was they're retching with you. We're all like, oh, look at these people being weird and horrible, but in this, it's not intended to be like that, which makes it worse.
And also, they really they sort of sidestep. There's like the film, you're like told about, like, you know, like how much she loves her dad, and like, you know, like how she wouldn't be able to like cope if something bad happened to her dad, and like, you know, like Usher and her are kind of like gushing over the dad, and it's like, well, he's like one of the mob boss of one of the main crime families.
He must have a lot of blood on his hands.
Yeah, he must have, like, you know, murdered a lot of people. But you know, this in the mix doesn't really ask you to ask these questions. You're just not really meant to question anything. It's just sort of like you're meant to be kind of like sort of drip fed, just sort of like
it tells you about as much about being in the mob as I would imagine like Dora the Explorer does about exploring, kind of. Or like Peppa Pig about being
like a Latin
pig.
American like explorer, and like Peppa Pig about being like just like a pig in the arable farming industry.
Well, you're making it more specific, which is lending credence to these shows, but what I'm really saying is it's inauthentic, basically. He associates with some unpleasant people. We're very quickly introduced to a scary bald mobster.
Who I think looks like Sam from I Am Sam, that really odd movie with Dakota Fanning and her mentally disabled father.
Plays a Down syndrome person alongside people.
No, he's not Down syndrome. He's just like handicapped.
He's Down syndrome.
No, he's just mentally handicapped.
I think he's meant to.
No, he's not specifically Down syndrome.
Okay, well, it was an interesting film.
It was really, really quite interesting.
We must review that, although it's going to be quite difficult on YouTube to get around.
But I will show like the side-by-side pictures of like the I Am Sam guy and then also this mobster. Basically, this mobster looks like if you took Ciaran and I Am Sam and you like perfect Venn diagrammed.
Shane from The Walking Dead, is he the one played by John Bernthal in The Walking Dead? You get all of them. And I mean, I'm just bald. That's the only reason I look like him. Anyway, they make it very obvious, spoiler alert incoming.
Yep.
They make it very obvious immediately that he's the bad guy,
he's
because the first thing you see is he goes up to Dolly at her like homecoming event and he's like, "You're looking good tonight." And he looks like licking his lips, and she's like, "Oh, thanks," and like walks off.
Looking good, darling.
Thank you.
Real good.
And immediately you're like, I guess he's going to be the bad guy. I don't think he's going to save the day.
If it was any element of realism with this film, not that I expect like real gritty, hardcore realism from in the mix, but like she would go tell her dad, and her dad would get him like shot in the alley like a dog.
Yes.
So
all she would have to do is go, "He looked at me funny," and based on their relationship and his level of power, he'd be like, "He's done. He's gone. Forget about it." So
anyway, turning into like pork sausages in the back of the deli.
Literally, yeah. And this is a constant thing throughout the film. She never tells her dad.
No.
This one guy who looks different to all of the other mobsters and is so clearly unpleasant.
Yeah, and a guy that at one point pulls a gun on her.
Yeah.
And if she had just told him at that point, instead of going off to shag Usher, if she just like even called up her dad and was like, "Hey, one of your like goons pulled a gun on me."
Game over.
Literally, the whole second half of the film wouldn't have happened.
Lost his mind.
Yeah.
So anyway, then during this homecoming event earlier in the film, a guy drives past and Usher is like DJing, and at first he's playing the oldies, and then it's like, whoa, what if I put on some hip hop?
No, remember the horrible scene with the granny as well, where they're like, they're putting the hip hop on,
and the granny likes it.
No, the granny doesn't like it, but then she's got like one of the other mob guys next to her, and he's like, "It's what like Bing Crosby was for the youngins today."
So they don't do rapping grandma, but they
do
get
close.
dangerously
They
close.
do.
And later on, they get dangerously close to rapping nun as well. They get near it. They sort of approximate.
They fly quite close to the sun.
I think even they knew in their wisdom that rapping grandma was
and
a
rapping
step
nun
too far.
would have been. But I reckon they probably discussed it.
I
in the
think
writers' room.
they probably did it,
Yeah,
and then
they
they were
probably
like,
filmed it, and they were
"Guys,
like,
I know this is a ramshackle operation and a very bad film we're
Mm.
making here, but we have to stop with the rapping."
I like to
grandma.
think Usher like stepped in. And
Yeah,
was like,
Usher was like, "I'm not going to be in this anymore."
Yeah.
Usher was an executive producer on this film, by the way,
Really?
which might explain why the whole film is about how sexy Usher is. So basically, someone drives past and they're about to pull out a gun, and Usher sees this after he's playing his hip hop records for the mobsters, and he runs and for some reason dives on top of Mr. P to save him and gets shot.
ready to take a bullet.
Takes a bullet for a mobster.
But very luckily, only in the shoulder.
And he's like, "Don't worry, Mr. P, you put my father through college," or something. I don't even some sort of sentimental nonsense. And and he saves him. And then he's like staying in the house and he's recuperating with them and all of this stuff.
He's got a really like sort of almost like comedically oversized like plaster over this like what you'd assume is a very small bullet wound.
He's that big, and the plaster of anything is more likely to peel
The whole
off.
thing, like yeah,
it's as though he's had a dog bite. On his shoulder. So anyway, he's staying at their house, and they decide someone has to accompany Dolly, and there's this awful scene that's meant to be like banter interplay between Dolly and Daddy.
You know you're as beautiful as your mother when you get mad.
Flattery will get you nowhere. Now, I will have a driver, but only to take me to the village.
Everywhere. Non-negotiable.
He waits outside.
He stays right with you.
Oh, Dad, I can't take Jackie anywhere. That's cruel and unusual punishment.
And it's meant to be
very tedious.
It felt like they were making like what's the one West Side Story or one of these like they felt like a lot of this harkens back to like movies from like the 50s and a lot of sort of weird like Daddy's Little Girl stuff, and in the old timey sense of that phrase, not the modern, not the smut meaning of it. And they're sort of like they're having this awful banter, and basically they agree. She's all like spunky and peppy, and she makes him agree like, okay, Daddy, but I'll have someone escort me, but it can be anyone I choose. And then she chooses Usher. And instead of him just putting his foot down and going, I've got a house full of guys who have guns and are ready to do anything.
Who have shotguns.
Who have shot guns before.
Who are like ready to die for the family.
Ready to die. It has to be Usher. So he insists that in order to do this, Usher must have a suit. So here's the part where things start to get quite weird. So they insist that Usher has to have a suit, and there's an incredibly unfunny scene with the tailor.
Which is racist and homophobic all at the same time.
Racist and homophobic and childishly sexual.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you're just having a suit fitting, and Usher's... one thing I'll say, Usher I don't think is terrible as an actor. I've seen much worse.
Oh, God, yeah.
One thing Usher is not is funny. But it doesn't help that they give him some very unfunny dialogue. But this dialogue is meant to be like, whoa, man, don't touch my junk, you know?
Hey, you know what? You gotta warn a brother before you go messing around in my junk, man.
Like, whoa, hey, he's like, you know, man, I got a big dick, yo.
Did you notice as well,
And
like he goes to like cover his like dick, like to stop this like Italian suit maker from like, you know, getting near his junk.
Junk?
And like, he places his hand like alarmingly low, as in to like cover it.
And when as
like,
if to try and make it look bigger than it is.
It's like, I don't think I like, look, Usher, like I know you're like quite a big black fellow, but I don't think it's that low down sot, unless he's like really aroused by the Italian suit maker. He goes like halfway down his thighs.
You mean because, you mean it's implying he's got an erection. But then they should have put something in his pants, because what you see is basically he's got empty pants that are
you just
completely
see the cloth
loose.
just like collapse.
You see the cloth, that's what, it's very odd. He's like just covering nothing.
I say, hey, hold on.
It's like, what are you trying to prove like in the mix, you know? Like, what
well, also in the context of the film, to like this fat old Italian tailor who's, by the way, he's been around the block as a tailor. He's done this before, and probably odds are he's felt some massive penises.
Yeah.
Because statistically, if he's done thousands of suit fittings, some people just have like elephant cocks. So he's not really interested.
No.
And he's certainly not trying to fill you up. But anyway, so there's this scene, and the thing is with this scene, it feels like we're meant to think that Usher has like the sort of moral or comedic upper hand here, when it's like you're acting like an idiot.
Yeah, he does.
You're getting a suit
the whole
fitted, and you're like, whoa.
falls completely flat. Like it falls. It just I can't really. This scene was where I was like really like I realized I had to strap myself in for what would be quite a painful watch.
It's one of many scenes, I would say, and a lot of Kevin Hart has a few of these scenes that in the right movie, someone like Chris Tucker makes really funny.
Yeah.
In Rush Hour, there's a lot of scenes where someone tries to do something to Chris Tucker, and he like goes crazy, and he's so funny, and he's such a good comedic actor that it's just brilliant.
They didn't have Chris Tucker.
They did not have Chris Tucker.
They had Usher.
They had, a Poundland Chris Tucker in the form of Kevin Hart, and they had Usher, who's not even similar to Chris Tucker.
Yeah.
So, but it should have been like a Chris Tucker scene, and where you're sort of being like, Chris Tucker's being a bit silly here, but we love him.
Yeah.
But instead, it's meant to be like, Usher's so cool. He doesn't want the Italian tailor to touch his big penis that we can't see.
Yeah.
So it's very odd. And anyway, then he's like, why don't we just start with a suit, man? And then he comes out and he's fitted in the suit, and the top half of it is all right. The trousers are still massive.
Yeah, and they very weirdly focus in on the trousers, and I think what they were trying to say is like, yeah, he's in a suit, but he's still like down to his urban roots.
He's making it fresh. He's flexing.
I get, but it was like, if you were just watching it like normally, I don't even think you would pick up on that. So it's a little bit, it was just a very odd, again, an odd decision from the directors to think that people would be like, the only reason we really noticed this is because we were watching it and trying to sort of like, really wrestle with the film and like really try and like,
because on the second viewing we're taking notes and we're like, why are the trousers big?
Yeah, but like it just really was just like washed past you as like a scene, and like just really, if anything, you probably just subconsciously like, wow, like Usher's suit's a bit odd, isn't it? Like, why are his trousers so baggy?
It makes you look not very buff because the legs are big, and that's always a thing. Like, if you want to look buff, you should have tighter trousers and then a bigger top half of your body, a slightly looser top half. But he's gone the other way, which just makes you look very. Who's the guy in the Wizard of Oz?
The Tin Man or the Scarecrow?
Probably any of them. Probably the Scarecrow.
Yeah.
He looks like someone from the Wizard of Oz. That's what it looks like when your trousers are bigger than your top half.
You should have come out in like latex, like a latex catsuit.
Yeah, or just latex on the bottom and then big and baggy on top to really puff himself. I'd be like, I'm barrel chested, bro.
They should have had him come out in those little like sumo wedgies.
He should have done the thing
nappies.
where you just paint. You just paint, and he tucks his his penis.
Whenever people they're like going to the gym, but I painted on my gym clothes. It's very childish and stupid.
It's like being a sick fetishist in public.
Yeah.
So he goes to the tailor, and as soon as Usher, regardless of if he continues to wear it or not, as soon as Usher has just been fitted for a suit, it is at this point that he becomes the most attractive man in the world to everyone. And it becomes, there are quotes such as, like you said, like, you must be able to see it or whatever.
No, you gotta be blind. You gotta be blind if you can't see it.
You gotta be blind if you can't see it, and you just stepped off a Cosmo front cover.
Look at you. You look like a walking Cosmo cover.
If they're seeing him like, and he's got his top off and he's dancing, I would understand why the women react like this. But when all they're really seeing is just his face, and they're like, "Oh my god, that is the sexiest thing I've ever seen in my life," and they don't even know who he is, and they're like, "Oh, this guy," and.
I think it's more that he's just sort of like physically imposing, like his head. I was thinking this because on the second watching, we're really sort of like chewing through the fat of this film. Like his head is fucking massive. Like his whole like just like the skull is like huge, and the dolly, she's actually got a teeny tiny little pinhead. Like her head is so small, and like during the scenes when they're kissing, because her head is so freakishly tiny and his head is so freakishly large, it looks a bit like an anaconda, like eating like a little baby capybara or something. Like it's really quite shocking. Like the not the sex scenes, thank god there aren't any of those in this film, but like the kissing scenes are really quite shocking.
Wow, I wasn't analysing skull shapes. I wasn't getting so sort of colonialist with it. That sounds a little bit Belgian, what you're getting into there.
But for some reason, like, because there is a sex scene, but I mean, it's like implied sex. So instead, they just like really focus in for, I feel, too long. Like they really pad out this film with this one really extended like kissing scene.
Yeah.
And it's really just like, it's just quite shocking to look at. It's just quite like, it looks like he's like consuming her.
Well, yeah, definitely the extent to which everyone goes insane over Usher's physical appearance is very odd. It would take, especially if it's a woman, they don't have to be that attractive. No. But for a man to get that level of response in public, where people are like not driving their cars properly because they're so
like D'Angelo or like Johnny Depp or something.
Johnny Depp, D'Angelo, like someone who's so handsome, it's just like silly.
Like, I just look like sort of like a very handsome man that might work at your office.
Yeah, if at the office all the ladies would fancy him. That's exactly. So the next thing is a lot of hideous edits and camera work and very half-assed attempts at like doing a thing. One of them, there's a particularly awful back and forth scene. The scene
where the camera is like swaying, like it's on a ship,
and they just give up. Like they try to do this thing where her and Usher are debating whether or not he's going to be her driver or whatever, and the camera's like to Usher, and then like to her. And then to Usher kind of, and then it just cuts anyway, and it cuts to her. So it's like you're doing all this swaying and they're not even maintaining it, and they're not swaying evenly. No. It's like the guy was drunk.
So the camera's like drunk and then also on a ship.
And then they fucked up the last sway, so they were like, just cut in here. Yeah. Just do a cut here with a different camera. And then there's
also at the end where they really, I think they just really give up at the end. They do a literal screen wipe, like a screen wipe that would be
an
like
upwards
literally like you'd get on like Adobe Premiere Pro, like
if you let your teenage
like Windows
son
Movie Maker
make your wedding video in
even
like
like
the
a PowerPoint,
90s.
yeah, like,
appalling transition. Yeah, so we have the horrible upwards wipe.
Yes, we do.
And we also have a very ghastly and completely unnecessary sped up high frame rate scene.
Yeah, that one's
where
horrible.
Two separate mafia families meet and everything's like
really unnecessary. Because they do it really subtly. So when you first see it, you're not like you're a bit confused. Like it's like is it on purpose, or is it it's just really quite an odd scene, that bit where they're like just very quickly moving, but like not quick enough where you're like, oh, this is deliberate, like where it just sort of like almost
looks
puts
like they're tweaking or something.
It puts it into like uncanny valley.
You're twist your mic a bit. Yeah, no, that was awful. Then they have another confusing scene. In one of a lot of the editing is very bad in this film and very confusing, which is a hallmark of these shit films, is that obviously usually most aspects of these films are bad. If they're bad enough for us to watch and review on this channel, then they're just bad all round for the most part. But the editing is often very bad. And there's certain stuff that's just very confusing. Like, for example, she says, someone says, Daryl, what's your favourite place? Or like, should we go to your favourite place? And then it immediately cuts to the sirens on top of a police car.
Yeah, that is
like,
really
whoop,
odd.
whoop.
Yeah, that's really strange.
Like, I don't think Daryl's favourite place is the back of a police car.
Where's your favorite place?
I'd say that's a place.
So jarring that we both immediately thought we thought like he's been like arrested.
Why
like,
is this a joke that he likes being arrested? And then his favourite place is a diner cafe thing that there just happened to be a police car outside, so they're trying to let us know.
Really odd.
They're trying to let us know like this place is urban and gritty.
Yeah.
And Daryl likes to be down in the dirt, and he hangs out downtown. Before we move on to the rest of that scene, so there's a particularly horrible shot, a particularly just ridiculous and childish attempt at filmmaking, where Daryl is in the bathroom, and there's a completely normal scene, nothing crazy is happening, and Usher's character, Daryl, goes to leave the bathroom, and they obviously noticed that there were mirrors on both sides of the room.
Yeah.
So they decide to do a kind of Bruce Lee Enter the Dragon type effect, where Daryl leaves the room, and he does it. You can see he's walking very, and you're like,
or like you can see that they've started. So in the film, the continuity is meant to be like he's going from the bathroom like into the corridor, but you can very clearly tell that he's like started from standing,
from a standstill, and he's doing that sort of like.
Yeah, like I'm walking normally.
The NPC walk, when you're having, or if you're like, you're trying to like you have like a bag of drugs in your pocket, and the police see you, and you're like,
yeah.
And he's like, he does this walk, and then they film the mirrors on both sides, so you see like 50 reflections of Daryl, and this is something if it was in like an A24 movie,
like a Gaspar Noé
they would
film.
use to tell you something, but instead it's just like. Ooh, mirrors. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
And it's completely out of place with the whole rest of the film, because the whole film is not like artistic or like edgy or even like visually interesting in any way, shape or form. And for some reason, basically I think what happened was that they accidentally caught a little clip of it on camera, and they were like, we've got to put this in. Whoa, this is a real Hollywood stuff, guys. Like, and that one was really odd. It was really just like, I remember when it happened, both Ciaran and I were sort of like frozen. Like we both like, we couldn't believe what we'd seen.
It reminds me of my early days of making music videos with my friend when we were like young, and we were like, we've got to put this in there.
Oh yeah.
There's a mirror. Like,
yeah. I feel like every kind of early independent musician has got one music video that's like a cool scene with mirrors involved.
I literally do.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Olaf's stomach sound. Check it out. And I'll say my mirror scene is better than the one in the mix.
Yeah.
And it makes more sense. So tell us about the yoga scene, Tara.
I'd rather not, to be honest. It's so horrible. It's basically they go like he's like escorting her on her like daily activities, and they go do yoga, and there's this like it's just really crass and childish yoga scene where like these women are doing downwards dog in front of Usher, and for some reason he's like like
to himself.
He's acting like an Italian guy. He's just like made like a nice like pasta sauce or something. And it's really odd because like the women's asses that they zoom in on, they're not even wearing like tight yoga trousers or anything. They're just like normal thin women just like doing yoga. It really isn't. There's nothing like sexual really about the shot whatsoever. And he's just like. And then he's talked about like how, and then the yoga instructor is like hitting on him because he's literally irresistible. And then the dolly is all like fed up and like huffy because he's like, I guess, getting all the attention during the yoga session. And then he's like, "Girl, you like my downwards facing doggy style."
What? You feeling my downward facing doggy style.
And it's really, again, like many sort of like intentional comedy moments during this film, falls completely flat on its face, like completely and utterly flat. It's not funny in any way, shape or form. Yeah, that one was a particularly, I don't know, it's just, I think the yoga scene is probably one of my least
I would
favorite.
say the yoga scene is probably the worst.
And then the scene immediately following it as well.
We'll
There's like a chunk in the middle of this film where you're really like,
well, there are two
like,
scenes,
just sighing.
Two scenes in the film that serve the exact same purpose, one after the other.
Yes.
So the whole point of the yoga scene, there's nothing in it other than women love Daryl.
Yeah.
And then also, the joke. It's just a really distasteful, unpleasant experience. And it leaves a sour taste, and you're immediately like, right, why did you show me this? Why am I looking at this happening? And
it would be fine if it was just this scene on its own, but because it is immediately like is a precursor to a equally horrible, pointless scene, like immediately afterwards, it just, I don't know, it's like a shit sandwich. It's like trying to eat like a horrible like a turd truffle or something. It's
awful.
Yeah.
And then we get the girl talk, the ladies at lunch scene.
Yeah, with the dialogue is really odd. The dialogue is like, I don't know, like if you spoke like English as a foreign language and like someone asked you to write in English, like what do people talk about at dinner?
To me, it's like being on like tranquilizers and watching Sex in the City, and you're sort of like, I think I can hear them.
You're on like buckets of like tramadol.
You're like what? At the TV. You're like, oh, no. Mm-hmm. And they're sort of talking, and you get the gist, basically, just like bitches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then Daryl sits at the table, and there's
he doesn't immediately sit at the table.
No, he's like off in the she tells him to like go at the bar.
Yeah, she's like sit there because he's meant to be escorting her. And again, Daryl's just sat there. You can barely see him. You can just see like his side profile, and these women are like, oh my god, Daryl.
Yeah. And like, so that her friends, they like tell her that they has to invite Daryl to the table. And they're like literally like salivating, like legs crossed, like like googly eyes for him. And there's a really odd scene that made me particularly angry because one of the gals at the table, she's like, do you want one of my pot stickers, like a dumpling? And she feeds him the dumpling, and then she immediately afterwards from the same plate feeds him a chocolate covered strawberry. And it's like, what kind of establishment is this that they're serving like Chinese gyozas alongside chocolate covered strawberries? It was just really odd. Like, why? I don't know, maybe just don't have the gyoza scene in there at all. Like, just let her feed him like chocolate covered strawberries. It was really odd. I don't understand how no one in the writing room, or no one as it was being filmed, or none of the actors were like, why am I at this like fancy dining establishment and I have in front of me a plate of like Chinese like dumplings and chocolate covered strawberries, and I'm gonna feed. Also, I'd be fucking pissed. Like, imagine you're like chewing down on a gyoza, and like you got the nice like savory umami flavors in your mouth, and then immediately afterwards this lady's trying to force feed you chocolate covered strawberry.
Yeah, you're like, oh, what is this, man? Are you my grandma? Like, give me all this food I don't want.
Yeah.
And then also, to cap it off, he has a chocolate covered strawberry, and then there's another woman who I think like wants to feed him or something, and he's like, is that a chocolate covered strawberry in your hand? It's like, well, given that you just had a chocolate covered strawberry, and what she has in her hand
being dished around,
it does look a lot like a chocolate. She's like, oh no, actually, this is actually a cherry tomato with the stem on, and it has balsamic vinegar like solidified. It's just like, of course it's a chocolate covered strawberry, you idiot. And so they're both feeding him chocolate covered strawberries, and then they say something about one of their boyfriends has cheated or something, or was at a strip club.
Oh yeah, this seems horrible.
And then the idea is like, Daryl's going to give them an insight into the male brain, and they're all interested. He specifically
says that the only things that are on a man's mind are lunch, women, music, and sports.
Yes.
And it's
he doesn't mention sport at any point in the movie.
No.
Music is not important to all men.
No.
And he says
Also,
food,
like,
he says food, music, women,
food,
and they're all like listening intently. And then one of them, like a line from a different film, she said, Dolly goes to interrupt, and her friend goes, "Let the man speak." And it's like, what movie is this? Why is she talking like, "Let the man speak"?
Yeah, it's really odd.
And they're all. They go from being transfixed by his appearance to being transfixed by these amazing insights. And it's like, I think you could have probably gathered that men like food and sex. Like, it's not. And how does that make you feel better about your boyfriend being at a strip club that Usher tells you that men like music, sex, and sport or something? It doesn't
basically a completely and utterly, totally 100% pointless, insignificant scene in this film, following another completely, totally, utterly pointless and insignificant scene in the film.
Because often in films like this, they have those bits where like women explain men, or men explain women, or men explain men, and even though it's shit and it's corny, they tell you something of substance.
Yeah, but
and
there's nothing to extrapolate from both those scenes.
It's
other than
awful.
like women want to fuck Usher. Basically, that's the only thing. Like women want to fuck Usher, and like Usher knows about men. Like okay,
and
great.
It's around this stage the movie gets really bad. Like
at this point, I'm like sort of. I think really from the strawberries and the chocolate covered strawberries and the gyoza on the same plate. This is where I'm like pissed off at this film. Like this is where I'm like angry. Yeah,
it's starting to become. The first third of the film is fine, and then it really, really begins. After the first third of the film, it begins to shit itself in a manner where you'd expect, like, it's going to run out of shit. You know, it's like you've got diarrhea and you're like, this is going to stop soon because I've done a lot.
Oh,
and
no.
it's just like,
it's just getting started.
For like the whole rest of the movie.
I think at this point it'd be good to read this one line of this review that I saw that I think really perfectly encapsulates in the mix. So this is a review I saw, I think it was on Rotten Tomatoes. The depths of stupidity that In the Mix plunges to are alarming, even for something this intentionally insignificant. Which I think really,
that's good.
And what I would also quite like to, if I may have a moment, is to also read this one other review that really tickled me.
Please.
On Metacritic, there's only 2 reviews for this film. One of them is 1 star, and the other one is 10 star. I'm going to read you the 10 star review now, okay? I like Usher's song. A movie starring Usher is sure to attract attention. Kevin Hart is my favourite actor. I like to watch his movies. It's fun. After watching the movie trailer, I thought it was a really good movie. I want to watch the movie. 10 out of 10.
Well,
I just thought that would be some interesting food for thought. I have no other comments.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair enough.
I really like this sort of almost like Kabbalah-esque like ability this person has, like just from watching a trailer. They know the whole film.
It's a good movie.
Yeah. Like, what was it? After watching the movie trailer, I thought it was a really good movie.
I hope that after posting this video, we get some sort of flack from this person who's like, no, I've seen the trailer and you're wrong. It's a really good movie.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
We're like, yeah.
I like Usher's song.
I like
It's
Usher's
a strange
song.
thing to immediately enter in with.
I'm trying to understand what country this person is from.
Yeah, because the English is actually written perfectly. Like, there's no.
Oh, is it? I like Usher's song. I mean, that's not.
I like Usher's song.
Well, that's not perfect English, is
No,
it? I
but-
don't think they only like one of his songs, and if they
Yeah.
did, they should specify. I think you set a very low bar for perfect
No,
English.
because there's Usher wrote one of the songs for the film.
Well, even then, they should say, I like the Usher song that's in the film.
Yeah.
Not
guess.
I like Usher's song.
No.
And
Usher's, like his song.
Usher's song.
Yeah.
And it's your reading that's poor. There's
I like Usher's
something about what you
I
just
actually
did.
wrote this
and
review.
said,
I'm like really devastated.
You're
to
really
response.
insecure.
This review I read online. I'm like logging into my Metacritic now.
Do you
and I'm
think
trying
this
to
person
delete
could
it.
have a career in journalism? Do you think
Yeah.
maybe there's a chance? So another thing is Dolly in the film has a really nice boyfriend, and he's handsome and he's tall.
He wants to marry her.
He wants to marry her. He's very well
He gets her
off.
father's like permission to marry
He's
her.
a total gentleman.
Yeah.
Her dad loves him.
They go to the diner together, like him, Usher, and Dolly, and he's making like a funny, light-hearted joke.
He makes a funny joke, and
probably the
everyone's
funniest
like,
bit of dialogue in the whole film.
Literally.
Like he's like he orders like the smothered chicken, and then he says,
I'll have the smothered chicken. Only, I hate to see it suffer, so instead of smothering it, if you could just give it a lethal injection.
And like everyone like rolls their eyes. It's genuinely the funniest moment.
Like, have you heard yourselves?
Yeah.
Have you heard the shit that comes out of your mouths? This bloke is a laugh.
Yeah.
And he's there and he's a bit paranoid because they're in a, you know, the police sirens were going off just outside the diner. So he's like checking his wallet and Usher's like, oh, you don't have to check for your wallet, man. God. And it's like, well, you also didn't have to bring me to a place where the police are like actively arresting people outside, you know, so maybe you should take a bit of responsibility. Sorry, I'm cautious. And God forbid she marries someone who's like careful, you know, but we're meant to think like this white guy is a bum.
Yeah.
Aren't white guys so boring?
And then like Dolly attacks him for wanting to, he's like, do you want to go back to mine and have like a cappuccino, go back home and have a cappuccino? And she's like, yeah, that's what you always want to do, isn't it? Like, and it's like, fucking hell, you
what do
bitch.
You want to do?
Like, and then she's like, you haven't done anything spontaneous since 3rd grade. And then he's like, well, marry me. And then she like laughs at him and says no.
She didn't laugh. No, she says something like, that's too spontaneous.
Yeah.
This is what we mean about her being a spoiled brat. She said, you haven't done anything spontaneous. And then he's like, marry me. And he smiles at her like a charming way. And she's like, that's too spontaneous.
Marry me.
Okay, that's a little too spontaneous.
And then like...
And then she goes and basically has
breaks up.
And then she has like a steamy... They didn't break up. She has like a steamy
she does.
session.
She says, I think we need to think about us or whatever. So she kind of does. And then the bloke who she's brought to dinner... It's like, oh, sorry, I'm not spontaneous enough. You brought me to like the ghetto with some guy. Why is this guy with us at dinner or a couple? We were close to engagement. And then she's like, yeah, I want to think about it. And then, she goes off with the guy. So it's like full cuckoldry.
Yeah.
And like just disrespectful, basically. Yeah. So they go off and then her and Usher go to the swimming pool.
Have like a sort of like, I don't know. I think at first it's meant to sort of be like a sort of like intimate, not steamy, but like sort of intimate swimming pool session together. But instead it's like really unintentionally like very childish and stupid. There's a bit where like Usher gets into the pool and he's like, he says he doesn't want to go into the pool because he can't really swim. And then she's like, no, come in and I'll show you how to float. And then what does Usher do?
Well, this is, I think, what was meant to be like the main line of the film. Not because it carries significance, but this was just meant to be so cute and funny and charming that Usher's like, men don't float. And she's like, what? And he's like, men don't float. And she's like, And then she's like, what do you mean men don't float?
And he says it multiple times.
Men don't float. I think it's said 4 times.
No, men don't float.
What?
Men don't float.
Men don't float.
No.
Come here. I'll show you.
Men don't float.
Like it's like a real sentence.
And I think men don't float, to be fair, rolls off the tongue a bit easier than like people of Afro-Caribbean genetic heritage don't float quite as easily due to higher bone density.
Yeah.
I think that's probably maybe not as appropriate for a rom-com. It's maybe more of a contentious take.
Yeah. I mean, I think I would have respected the film a lot more if they'd just said that.
That would have been my favourite bit by far. If he had gone, people of Afro-Caribbean heritage don't float quite as easily sometimes due to, you know, the likelihood of having higher bone density. Of course, that's a broad generalization and it's not always true, but that can be a factor. And she's just like dumbfounded and Daryl just leaves. He's like, okay, well, you're obviously stupid then, so I'm not going to waste my time with you. And he leaves. And I would have been like, I love this movie. I love him. I love this movie. But that doesn't happen. So he says men don't float. And then she tries to make him float on his back. And he's like, men
very
don't
childish.
float. And he lies down and then he's like, I told you, men don't float.
I told you. Men don't float.
You don't float.
So they do that. And then there's a lot of, I mean, we've touched on some of these things, but there's a lot of just stuff that just racially is just in
a lot of really
in
like
poor taste,
classless.
or it's more like it's the lack of authenticity that annoys you, because it's like, we're not sensitive, we don't care if a film is, you know, a bit racist or whatever, make some stupid jokes, it can be hilarious,
but it's often very so funny, badly handled.
When it's not funny, it's not authentic, it's just stupid.
I want to read a couple of lines. Just two bits of dialogue from this film.
Sure.
I heard black men can dance.
I heard black men can dance.
And then if growing up in the hood is so dangerous, then why is it I only get shot by white people?
If growing up in the hood is so dangerous,
Why is it that I only get shot by white people?
That's, I think, does sort of encapsulate a lot of the sort of like racial stuff in this film.
Also in the sense they don't really know who the target is of the racism. It's kind of everyone's catching strays here.
Yeah. There's a lot of like there's a lot of just weird, just sort of quite tone deaf, ham-fisted sort of like, I guess would be like racial humor.
It's meant to be like, aren't our cultural differences hilarious?
Yeah.
But they just do it in a way that's unsuccessfully generic. So they try and like throw it in, like for example, and it doesn't make sense. Like when she's like, I heard black men can dance, and she starts dancing at this club,
and she's it's also like this scene. She's not she's doing like
she's just going like this.
They put a strobe light on to like distract away from her terrible dancing.
And then you see Usher, and he's just busted moves.
Yeah, he is.
But they do it. She says, "I heard black men can dance," and it's like they're implying the whole movie that like she lives in Brooklyn and she's really like down with the people, even though she's rich and she's so fun and free spirited. So I don't think she just needs to hear it. I don't think she didn't grow up literally in like Sicily, like in the 1950s. I think she probably knows that black men can dance. She's probably been out before. She seems to go to a lot of nightclubs, and she's hung out with Daryl before, so she obviously knows that Daryl is a really good dancer because this is a big part of Daryl's life and personality. And she's acting like he's the first black man that she's ever met, and that they don't know each other. So it's stupid from that point of view. And then his bit where he's like, man, if the hood is so dangerous, why is it only white people that shoot me? And it's like, you're meant to be like, we are bad.
And it's not just, there's a poker scene in the film where they go play like Usher, Dolly, and like three of Usher's friends play poker together. And during this poker scene, one of the guys doesn't have any money, so he's like looking in his like pockets for something that he can bet with, and he puts what I'm assuming is like an unregistered firearm, and the fact that he like pulls it out of his pants and he puts it on the table, and then the other two black guys are like and they put their
great, I really want that on
their guns on the table as well. And it's like, so what we're trying to say is that like just like black guys they just keep these like burners on them, like, and it was really quite tasteless.
Well,
really.
he tries to bet his bulldog. He has a bulldog who's farting in the corner,
who gets really suddenly shoehorned really late in the film,
along with these new friends who are suddenly introduced. And Usher's meant to be like not a criminal, and yet the people he hangs out with, they're all just like, here's my gun. I'm going to bet my gun. And clearly it is illegal, because if it was legal, it's not legal to give your gun away in a poker game, basically. So you can't have a legal gun that you put in a poker game.
No.
And like, who wants someone's dirty used gun? I don't want to know. I don't want to get
picking them
caught
up
with
and
it.
stuff, and like putting her like prints all over them.
Yeah, like don't touch anyone.
Again, this is like an element of realism that again I don't think that in the mix ever asks you to apply
but
to.
Again, in the right context, in the right movie, you could make that scene passably funny. Where it's like outrageous. Again, you need someone funny, like Chris Tucker. Not Chris Tucker's not really his thing, but someone funny to do something like that.
I will say, I think Kevin Hart is like trying during this scene.
Kevin Hart is probably the most competently comedic actor in the film, but he is still annoying. He's doing the best job in this scene for sure. But they try and bet their guns and their bulldogs, and the thing is about this scene that it immediately follows a scene we mentioned earlier where the bald scary mobster pulls a gun on Dolly and Usher, and the whole movie could just end here if she just told her dad, this bloke is scary, he keeps being creepy with me, he's saying racist things to Usher throughout the whole movie, who's our friend who saved your life, by the way, Dad, and he just pulled a gun on us because we were dancing together, he's a psycho. And they go instead to this underground poker game where there's all these unlicensed firearms. She's in a basement with all these guys who are like pulling guns out, and they do that. So that's one of the scenes that's very, Usher's like, let me show you my friends, and it's like they go to some shithole diner where people are getting arrested, and they go to a poker game,
they go to a like a Black American like cookout,
Big Mama's cookout, and by the way, Big Mama is in fact the name of the character.
That is her name.
They're like, oh, it's Big Mama, and we don't need to describe Big Mama.
Inappropriate little girl who asks Dolly if Dolly and Usher have had sex.
You two dumb and nasty.
Yeah, and she's about probably 6 or 7.
Yeah, it's really odd.
And she's in every sex scene in the film. The little girl walks in,
and she like pops up, and
she always says really inappropriately mature, not just sexual stuff, but she'll just be like, "We need to talk." And it's like,
she says to Dolly, she's like,
"No, we don't.
She's
You're
like,
7.
Have you two done the nasty? And then Dolly, instead of being like, "Whoa, can someone get this like inappropriate little child away from me before she starts making allegations?" Like, instead of just like, "Can I tell you a secret?" And then I really like him, and it's like someone needs to like call social services on this like tiny little like little 6-year-old girl who's on her own a lot and is very interested in sex. Like, there's something very odd going on here.
She keeps walking in on Usher deliberately
and asking adults if they fucked. Like, it's really quite strange.
And like critiquing Usher's sexual partners.
Yeah, it's really. And there's one point where she comes into the like, she sort of like breaks in. She's just a B&E in his apartment, and while he's like about to have sex with this like quite fine looking black lady, and she breaks it up, and she's like, "I knew she's not right for you," and it's like, why don't you leave the adult matters to the adults, and you can just like, I don't know, like watch Peppa Pig or some shit with Big Mama.
There's also, it's not just the inappropriately sexual stuff we've heard. There's something where someone says they're going to get some food or something. I think someone says like, "I'm going to get some chicken" or something. And they don't even offer her any, and she goes, "Sounds good to me," and they walk off together. And it's like, no kid is that, no person is that confident.
That like, level of like agency.
But a 7-year-old, like sounds good to me, and like follows. It's just.
And what I will say as well about this scene, the cookout scene, is like black soul food, like black American food. Like, they really know how to cook. They do some delicious food, and this scene makes me particularly angry because like Usher and Dolly have these 2 plates, and they're like talking like against like a sort of like cultural moment, like a sharing of cultures.
He's like,
this is grits,
and this is cornbread,
and like, but the plate that they have is like, it looks disgusting. Like, it's literally just like a plate of like just grits, like boiled yams, and like mustard greens.
There's no
and
main
like,
dish.
There's no like delicious fried chicken, or like like there's no. It was just a really. I remember this scene in particular like really bothered me. I was like, they clearly didn't get like someone. I guess they didn't get like catering to do like believable like quality like black food. So instead they were like, yeah, we'll boil some like sweet potatoes and like put some porridge on the plate, and it really was. I'm gonna put a clip here, like a picture, so you can understand why I have this level of passion and my anger about this scene, because it was honestly, it really pissed me off.
My least favorite thing about this scene, the thing that pissed me off, was the Big Mama character, who again, we've got Fat Tony, we've got Big Mama. I don't need to describe Big Mama. You know what Big Mama looks like. And Big Mama sees Dolly, and she goes, "Girl, you need some meat on your bones."
This girl needs some meat on her bones. You like macaroni and cheese.
I'm not saying it very well, but basically, you need some meat on your bones, said by a rotund African-American female to a skinny white woman, it's up there with rapping granny, with dog farting, with it's like, okay, and
really
it's sort of
childish.
Like, she's so soulful
really
and colourful.
Childish and like reductive.
It's to the point of like, it's disrespectful. It's just, it's like, I'm so vivacious and big and full of food, and I'm gonna make you full of food. And it's like, just stop it, man. You haven't even introduced yourself, and you're immediately telling her she needs meat on her bones. That's really annoying. And the other thing that's in a similar vein to this and the poker game is the R&B guys singing in the street.
Oh, this one's really odd. I don't know if they're like friends of Usher, or like there's like some sort of like maybe outside the movie some context to this scene, but there's just like 3 like a little like barbershop quartet of like urban looking like young black lads, and they're like singing, and the singing isn't particularly good. The singing's actually not that. It's sort of just a bit. It's just the whole scene's really odd, and like Usher's like talking to them, and then it's the end of the scene.
It's to show you, because they go on the night out together. Usher takes them to this shitty diner in like a dangerous area, and it's to show you like Usher's life is so kind of like colourful and vibrant, and it's New York, and he just goes to places, and guys are singing in the street, and he's down with all the people, and he goes to the cookout every day. Usher's just living the soulful life, and it's sort of like, we're meant to be like, he can't even walk down the street after dinner without seeing some of his bros singing an R&B classic, and they're high-fiving, and it's like a window into his world. It's like, I think probably most days are not that eventful. Like, that might happen once in a while, but I think we're sort of laying it on a bit thick now about how Usher's life is so brilliantly sort of down to earth, and and embedded in, you know, the local community. So they have
what we've got to mention as well is that after the poker scene, where they have their first actual kiss.
Yes.
And this is the scene where he it looks like an anaconda eating like a baby, like a juvenile capybara. And then afterwards he drops her off in a like back at her home, and he says, like, she says about, like, he mentions the kiss, and she's like, yeah, I'm not going to forget about that one. And then he goes, maybe you should.
I don't think I'm ever going to forget that.
Well, maybe we should.
And I just thought it'd be really funny if that was the end of the film. Like, just like, well, maybe you should. And then it's just like the credits roll, and it's like, it's
yeah,
like
for
Usher,
the next sort of 5 to 10 minutes of the film, it just comes across like he's really playing her. Like, he's just... But
Yeah.
also, it's like, they didn't even shag, so it's like, what? He just wanted a kiss, and then he wants to, like,
No,
distance
they
himself
do
from her.
have sex, I think.
After the kiss. They seem to have sex on the sofa, right? It's always on the sofa. And
Yeah.
the little girl walks in, of course, like she did earlier in the film. So that
The
happens.
little, like, peeping Tom pervert child.
Another, and I would say in terms of the Big Mama's cookout, the R&B guys singing in the street, the poker game, it reminds me of very old-timey racism.
Yeah.
Where they're like, look at these fellows, isn't this colourful? And it was very, like, very odd. And then there's other stuff that comes from, like, a different style of movie, which this comes from more like a raunchy sex comedy, where she's at breakfast with her dad the night after she's kissed
awful.
Usher. This one is
no,
really
this is the
horrible.
night after they've had sex.
The night after they've had sex, yeah. And she's at breakfast with her dad, and her dad says, do you want coffee? And she goes, black. And then he goes, sugar? And she goes, brown. And she's like, she can't help saying black. And it's like, aren't you meant to be like, you've grown up with this guy, with Usher, and you know him really well, and you like him, and you respect him, and you're not just like, black, brown.
It was
the night after you had
really
sex
childish,
with him. Like,
really
you have
childish and juvenile.
Racist Tourette's.
Yeah.
Because you had sex with a black man. And it's like, it doesn't really make sense in the context of the movie. And with her dad.
How do you like it?
Black.
Black. Sugar?
Brown.
And they've never mentioned at any point that up until this point, they don't say that the dad is racist because he likes Daryl. And Daryl saves his life. And then the bald guy who they should have dobbed in for pulling the gun earlier, the scary bald mobster comes to the dad later on that day and tells the dad, and there's a bit of confusion about this bit. He comes and says, you're going to want to know about this. And he's like, what? And you don't see what he says. And then he goes and becomes racistly furious that Usher got with his daughter, and he's like livid, and suddenly he becomes like a monster, this guy.
It's really odd. Like, suddenly it's like we're watching, like, To Kill a Mockingbird or something. Like, it's like, it really, like, the whole like, this guy that, like, loves Usher, and, like, you know, he's like one of the family, and then suddenly they're like drowning Usher in, like, a hotel swimming pool. And it's literally like a modern day lynching. It's really quite ghastly.
He sends the mobsters, they all come and find him at a spa, and they start dunking him into the jacuzzi, and he's like, please.
And he's like, how could you do this to me? How could you do this to me? You disrespected me. And it's like, I'm sorry, like, fell in love with your daughter. Like, I didn't realize it was like 1940s or something. It's really odd.
The vibe is sort of like, you sullied my daughter.
It's really
just
strange.
By having, just by being what you are, you've disrespected my daughter's skin. It's like very racist. But we think, when you watch it, it seems very clear that there was a different plot intended that they never bothered with. I think the idea was that what the bald mobster actually told the dad was that,
because there's a mole, there's like a mole / rat situation going on, and they're like oh, is it the rival mob family? And then we think that it was the villain, the one that looks like Kieran crossed with I Am Sam, that we think that he said to the mob dad, it's actually Usher who's the rat / mole.
Usher you think he's dobbed him in he snitched on him for something other than just kissing her.
Yeah, because they
imply it with the
immediately
dialogue.
afterwards, after they've, like, basically drowned Usher, and then they've, like, dumped him on the street corner. The Dolly she sees her dad. Her dad just waited for her in the spa for her to come out the shower, and she says to him, she's like, oh, why don't you like him? Because he's black? And then he goes, don't you dare say that. That's not true. And it's like, well, then what reason is it? Like, why do you suddenly, like, you know, this, like, you know, apparently this guy is like part of the family is like in love with your daughter. And there's no, he acts really like pearl clutchy about it and he's like really outraged, but he doesn't provide any other reasonable explanation for his like fury and rage.
So he goes mad about this, and the dialogue is deliberately ambiguous, where he's like, "You betrayed me," and he's like, "I didn't mean for this to happen," and it's all done in a way where in a normal movie, in a better movie, the idea would be he would go, "Oh, you just dated her? Why didn't you tell me? I thought this happened." It's like a misunderstanding that gets cleared up.
It says like
all the pieces,
really enraged.
All the pieces are laid out for this misunderstanding to be cleared up. And I think they realised that didn't quite make sense. So they were like, let's just play it that he's racistly angry. And for some reason, he's like got this sort of cuckold rage about his daughter. And he's furious that a black man has been with her. So that happens. And then we get to... The bald guy, the bald mobster, who again, all of this could have been avoided if they just mentioned what a weirdo he was, but they don't. So he then calls the dad and says, because she agrees to break up with Usher, the dad says you have to break up with him, so she agrees. The bald mobster calls the dad and says, they're here at this club, you're going to want to see this. And it's in the middle of the day, and he claims that they're at this nightclub, and he's like, they're touching and kissing, don't bring the other guys, you don't want them to see this, the word will get round. And it's like, well, word is already presumably going to, because he brought all the other guys with him before to confront Usher for getting with his daughter. So what does it matter if they see it? Like, they're not kids, are they? Who cares? So he doesn't bring anyone. He goes on his own, and he goes to a nightclub in the middle of the day when the club is empty. And for some reason, Usher and Dolly are there when he would have just killed them already. He doesn't need them alive. The only reason you need them alive is to make a shitty climax for a shitty film where everyone's in the same room at the same time. The guy who's been double crossing the mobster, the guy from
who's
the
like
rival
obviously
mob,
the villain from like literally like day one,
the villain, the most telegraphed villain ever, and then the guy in the rival mob who he's collaborating with, and then you get Mr. P, Chaz Palminteri down, Usher and Dolly, and they're all there together alive. And you only do that if you need, for no reason. There's no reason why they're there. In reality, they would have been in a fucking body bag in his car already, just
they'd be
dead.
sleeping with the fishes.
They'd be all their limbs chopped off or whatever. And then as soon
they'd
as
be being turned to
Mr.
gabagool.
P walked in, he would just kill him. And he wouldn't need to do it in a fucking nightclub. But that's what they do.
In Usher's nightclub for some reason.
In Usher's nightclub, yeah. Like,
there's no explanation for why it's in Usher's nightclub.
No explanation whatsoever. Basically, they were like, right, we want to end the film. And
they're like, right, we've got one set that we've already built.
Yeah.
Like,
and we want to do a shitty half-assed climax that if you're like incredibly dumb, will pass off as like something of a climax to the film. So then Kevin
Hart's there with his farting dog, and there's like a bit of like comedy with the farting dog, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, he comes in, he's got headphones on, and he's like, what? And like, they're poining guns at him.
He really Kevin Hart's it up.
He does this Kevin Hart thing. And then, then the guys are going to kill them. And then the Wigger son walks in. And he
saves
comes
the day.
upstairs and he saves the day. And again, it's very Jar Jar. He's like, nobody messes with my peeps, yo.
Yeah.
Nobody messes with my peeps.
And it's like, right, they're not your peeps. That's your father and your sister.
Yeah.
And a man has a gun.
And a gun is pointing at them.
To their heads. And they might die. And you just put strobe lights on. And you go, nobody messes with my peeps, yo. And it's like, that's not... This is serious. Like, I know,
like, there's a level of like emotional depth and seriousness and like gravitas that just in the mix does not. You can't expect it because it never asks for it.
What I hated though about the "nobody messes with my peeps, yo" scene was because he's like, "Nobody messes with my peeps, yo," and it's meant to be like, "Yes, this silly man saved the day." And what I hated about it was it transported me back to being like sort of 9 or 10 years old, and I think I probably would have been like, "Whoa, he saved the day! Nobody messes with his peeps."
Oh yeah, like
and I might have said that at school, you know, like a primary school fight. I might have been like, "Nobody messes with my peeps, yo," like trying to be him, and I think it made me feel like, you know, shame. I was like, oh, this is horrible, get this off. And he does that, and then it's very confusing when he first does it because he puts the strobes on and the smoke and the music, and you just see his hand and you don't know who it is.
And his hand looks really dark.
Yeah, and you just see this hand and all the music comes on, and then all the strobes and the smoke is on and everything, and they're going around with guns, and there's like 2 minutes of pure nonsense.
Yeah.
Like nothingness.
And then Usher gets shot again, and very luckily, Usher gets shot in the other shoulder. Yeah, which is so
got
convenient.
Like, sort of shoulder nipples now, which is fine aesthetically. It hasn't ruined his bod. But the thing is, before he gets shot, it's again like a very poor man's Enter the Dragon. The final scene of Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon with the mirrors and the stuff. They're going behind these sheets. And there's the smoke, and he's like, "Who's that?" And they're like pulling the guns. But you, as the viewer, in the Enter the Dragon scene, it's done so well, and it's iconic. And you're like, "Where's the guy?" And you're seeing the mirrors, and you're confused, but in the right way. You're confused when you're meant to be, and you're in the clear when you're meant to be. But in this scene and in the mix, you're just confused, and you're just it's like you're behind like 10 feet of plexiglass, and you're like, "No, is there a movie?" And the movie's like gong 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 knocking back, and you're just like, "Ah." And everything's like foggy, and you can't see the film, and everything is just it's like you just feel again like dehydrated watching it.
Yeah.
And it happens, and then Usher gets shot, and then it's a bit annoying because they couldn't make their mind up. Is Kevin Hart the wacky comic relief character that saves the day,
or is the son
the wacky comic relief character that saves the day? And they're kind of the same character, except Kevin Hart is black.
He's actually black, so.
And then the other guy's like a mobster's son. But both of them, and then the Kevin Hart's like, "Good looking out, B," and he's like, "Yo, man." Like,
and he's a bunch of like gibberish. It's meant to be like funny because it's like such like black talk that not even Kevin Hart understands it.
And then the dad does.
Oh yeah,
then
the dad like translates
it, and the son's like, "Yo, Dad, what?"
At this point, I'm literally like willing this film to end.
It's pure cancer.
I've got like
at this stage.
my head in my hands, and I'm just like really just like ticking down the seconds for this to be over.
It's really become pure Jar Jar with the son at this stage. He is like fully. It's like they just whacked Jar Jar into the movie, and it's just vomit inducing.
Hey, now that was tight, Junior. Yo, you know I was peeping a cold meat party. Let's all be mashing supersize. You know what I'm saying?
No, Junior, I don't know what you're saying.
You said he had to act fast, otherwise we'd be dead.
What?
Pops, what?
You live in the same house, you learn some things.
Yeah, baby.
Come here, man.
He saves the day, and Kevin Hart kind of also saves the day,
and then they get married, and it's like,
wow. And a disco ball falls on the ball.
A disco ball falls on the Ciaran / I Am Sam guy.
Then they get the wedding, and I feel that what happened here was they kind of panicked. And they were like, "We haven't got nearly enough good stuff in this movie." Because have you noticed that this movie we've made is like shit? Have you noticed that everything we've made? The other people are like, I don't want to admit that it's shit, but let's just say that there's not as many good scenes in this as there are in like Rush Hour, for example. So maybe we need to do something drastic here. Let's get lots of funny jokes in right at the end.
Yeah, like really crammed in.
Let's get all the funny stuff in at the wedding.
And then some more farting dog humour. People farting and dog farting.
There's the dog, well, you think the dog farts, and then the guy's like, "It was me." And then the dog, though, as if that makes you think, oh, is the dog then a serious character if it was not he who farted? No, because the dog humps Kevin Hart's leg. And Kevin Hart's like, "What's wrong with this dog, man?" Mm-hmm. And you're meant to just be like, "Bah."
The peaks of comedy, farts and a dog humping a leg. Of course, like Shakespearean up in here.
And then we see that the white boyfriend of Dolly is now dating this black woman who was infatuated with Usher. And she liked Usher even though he was poor. And she just seemed to like Usher.
Yeah.
And she seemed to find him very attractive. But now she's with this white guy, and she's just like a gold digger. Suddenly, they've completely changed her character. And she's like, "Will you buy me this or whatever?"
Yeah.
And he's buying her all this stuff, and he's like, "Oh, I love this. This is so good." And he's like delighted to be with a black woman.
I'm happy for him as a character.
I'm happy that he ends happy, even if she's a gold digger. He's just loving it, and he can afford it.
He's just like, "Look at my fine honey."
And then there's a big fat mobster who we've barely seen in the movie, but again, he's meant to be like, we're meant to love this fat, lovable guy.
Yeah.
And then one of the other mobsters tells him, "You know, you look really fat." And he's like, "What?" And then the son explains to him, "Yo, it means pH fat, like fat." And he's wearing like a furry Kangol, and he's like, "It means good, yo, for shizzle." He literally says for shizzle.
Yeah, he does.
He's like, "For shizzle."
Yeah, like fat, yeah, for shizzle.
And then the guy's like, "I do feel fat. This is the fattest I've ever felt in my life."
Oh, fat. Oh, yeah, thank you. Hey, tell you the truth, I never felt fatter in my life.
It's really like just like at this point, like my teeth are like literally like I'm like gritting my teeth, and I'm like clutching the like arms of the sofa, just like really wanting it to end.
This is the point where, although I mean, I say you're watching the film at the cinema of your child, but children aren't even allowed into this film at the cinema.
No.
And who else is that joke for if not children?
No.
So you're watching it on DVD with your child, and they laugh, and you go,
yeah.
And and the first time in their life they feel like you might become physically abusive. You know, they're laughing and you're just like, and you just stare at them and you shoot the kid a look that says like, there can be a level of gravitas to this relationship that you've not experienced yet, but I want you to cut this shit out now.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a year or two, but I don't want any of this shit in my household, and I don't want you to be laughing at such classless and stupid things. And I want you to grow up fast because you're going to need to under my roof. And that's how that scene makes me feel. Abusive rage towards a child I don't have. No, yeah, you must never do that to your child, even if you are watching In the Mix and they laugh at moments that you don't think are funny.
Even if they love In the Mix and they laugh at every moment that's meant to be funny.
Yeah, even at such a serious stimulus, you must never hurt your child.
And then thankfully the film fucking ends.
Yeah, basically it ends there. Yeah. So that's it. And
are there like some shit outtakes?
No, those are kind of the outtakes. These are happening during the credits, and then when that stops, when they stop showing the credits and it's just credits, there's an immense feeling of relief washes over you, and a crappy song plays. It's the best part of the film. And you're like, I've never been so happy to hear crappy music.
Well, it's the Usher song. It's the Usher. It's the song that he made for him. I like Usher's song. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Usher song. Yeah. Just the one song he has.
I told it's how I wrote it, not how I wrote it. I mean, how the reviewer wrote it. Yeah.
Yeah, that guy who wrote a really good review that I think was brilliant, and I think it's some of the best writing I've seen on the internet, and that was published online.
Yeah.
Whoever wrote that
they're a published writer.
Good. Good on them.
They're like Robert Ebers.
Good on them, and keep it up. Robert Ebers, exactly. Roger Egbert. So our ratings for this pile of shit.
Okay. Rating it as what it intended to be as a movie.
So yeah, we rate the films basically, and we will probably clarify this in every episode, annoyingly, but we kind of need to because it doesn't.
We
make
rate
sense
them as what they
what they
were intended to be, and then what they unintentionally are.
So we rate it basically as a good movie and as a so bad it's good movie.
Yeah. So if I'm rating it as like what it set out to do, and like as just a film. What I'm gonna do with this rating, I'm not necessarily gonna apply like my tastes to it.
Yes.
Like this is more just like what it tried to do.
Yeah, you just have to be
fair. For what it tried to do, it's so like it's like sort of like how that review said about how so like intentionally insignificant. I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10.
A 5 out of 10?
Yeah.
That is
for what it's trying to be. It's just trying to be like a sort of like mind-numbing, anesthetizing. Like I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10.
You've genuinely shocked me more than all the millions of dollars of budget that went into that film, and you've given me more of an emotional response.
Maybe a 4 out of 10. Maybe a 4 out of 10.
Even
it's not terrible.
Look,
it's not significant enough. It doesn't make enough of an impact.
It's not a 1 and it's not even a 2.
I wouldn't even. I think a 3 would be very unfair.
No,
I think.
Oh man, you've lost.
I'm going to either a 4 or a 5. It's just very like.
I think it's been too long since you've watched. Look, think about it. Right, none of it is funny. None of the
Goal
plot.
3 is like a 2.
Yeah, Goal 3 is a 2.
That is not anywhere near as bad as Goal 3.
It is.
No, I'm going to say no. I think it's a 4.
Also,
I think
1 point is a big difference, and it could be a low 2 and a high 3. Yeah,
I'm going to give it. You know what? I'm going to revise it. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10.
Okay.
As a so bad it's good film. The problem is there's not so bad it's good. It's just bad. I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10.
5 out of 10, really? You didn't enjoy it much? I mean, I've enjoyed talking about it more than I enjoyed watching it.
I've enjoyed talking about it. I remember actually, because the second watch was like really painful, but I remember the first watch not being very good at all.
No, I didn't enjoy it, to be fair. Yeah, so I'm going to say, for what it deserves as as an intended piece of work, I would say, a 3 out of 10.
That's mad to me. I think it's one point off Goal 3.
Well, 1 point, that's 10%. And also that could be a low 2 and a high 3. But regardless, it's not a 4. I've seen we've watched recently a couple of movies that were 4s out of 10. And I felt, I laughed at a couple of moments sincerely. There was not one bit in the Mix that made me laugh. There was not one.
No, but it's just lighthearted.
There was not one. Yeah, but it's not. It's shit. It's shit.
Yeah.
There was not one moment where I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
There was not one moment where I was happy for the only guy I liked was the one who I was meant to think was an idiot, who was the boyfriend.
But that's not like that constitutes a 4 or a 5. Like if it's just
doesn't.
Look, you have your score, I have my score.
If it had made me, I would say, laugh genuinely twice, I would say maybe a 4. Or if there'd been a bit where I'd been like, oh, I kind of want to know what happens here, but that not even once. So I'd say it gets a 3 on the basis of just being like, it had a structure. Goal 3 wasn't even a movie. It was pure dog shit and was utter laughable nonsense throughout. This, just by way of being even vaguely coherent story and having like passable actors, Chaz Palminteri and Usher was okay at times, and Dolly was so annoying but wasn't actually that bad as an actress.
She was just terribly written. She
was just a horrible person and quite an annoying actress, but not like bad. But for that, I would say a 3 is, I think I'm being generous, and I'm shocked you tried to give it a 5. That is unbelievable. Think what you're saying, right? A 5 means an average movie.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
that's
for
what a 5 is.
I'm saying for what it intended to try and achieve.
Yeah, but that means then you're saying that's like, it's an average movie that's possible.
No, I'm saying that it's like it like if it had 100% done what it tried to achieve, it would have been 10 out of 10. Like if it achieved being like a Rush Hour film, it would have been a 10 out of 10.
Rush Hour's a 10.
But instead, it just only I
have to be honest,
skipped the mid.
To say that is half as good as Rush Hour is blasphemous in this house.
I'm 4 out of 10. I'm sticking by it.
To say it's even 40% as good as, I feel like I'm even...
No, because the other percentages really matter. Like when you get to like,
the lower you get, the more...
Yeah.
I see your point, but if you said 3.5, I'd still be quibbling with you. But the fact that you started with 5 is outrageous.
I'm 4 out of 10. I'm sticking with that.
I almost wanted to shoot you. If I wasn't so shocked, I would have shot you my kid just laughed at the PH fat moment. Just like...
Yeah. We would have gone to a screen wipe.
Yeah, we would have done a screen wipe, and we come back, and you're just like, you've got one of the giant Usher plasters on. So no, I'm gonna say a 3 out of 10 in terms of its intended purpose, and for
a film?
for So Bad It's Good. I'm gonna say what you said. I think 5. It's worth seeing, probably, if you like these kind of shitty movies, because it's kind of the fact that it has Usher is kind of just a novelty, and it's sort of like...
and he got his washboard abs.
It's like the Usher movie, and you kind of like...
Did he do many other movies?
I don't think he did any, really.
Really?
I think this was the beginning and the ending, kind of Usher's movie career. I would say, it's like a spectacle in some ways and a novelty, and it's just sort of one where... when there's something where like, when you like, you try something, you try like a weird freaky biscuit you buy, and then someone's like, is it nice? And you're like, not really. I want you to try it. Like, I kind of want
a little bit like those Ukrainian bickies that we bought. Yeah,
where it's like, I'm not enjoying it, but I would like you to try it so we can also agree that it's not very good.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't actually really highly recommend people watch this film for its comedic value, but...
There's other better, like, So Bad It's Good films that you can watch.
If you've only just started...
If you're, like, really depressed, I would maybe say put this on, because it will just, like... It will numb you like a Wellbutrin will.
If it piques your interest or curiosity, then give it a go. But I wouldn't recommend you either way. Basically, it's just like, go on, why not? But it's shit. Yeah.
Damn. Usher's crying right now.
Usher is fucked up over this one.
Watching this and he's really upset.
Usher's going to write to us.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. Oh, no. That reminded me.
What?
I'm sorry. I forgot about something really bad that happened. This is one of the... We should end on this. So there's a thing. So imagine you're Dolly and I'm Usher.
Yeah.
And there's a horrible gag at the wedding scene where they're like, he goes over to Chaz Palminteri, Mr. P, and he's like, excuse me, I think it's time I dance with my wife. And it's like, dude, literally like a year ago, he was trying to lynch you for touching her. I'm surprised you have the nerve to speak to him like that at his place with all these goons around. You're lucky, mate, because he's crazy. But anyway, he's like, I think it's time I dance with my wife now. And they're dancing together. And then he goes, and they're talking, and she's like, "What are you keeping me?" And he's like, and then she's like, and then he's like, and I did take a bullet for you. And then they look at each other and they go,
should do it, how do it?
Twice.
And I take a bullet for you, Mrs. Williams.
Oh, I believe you already did. Twice.
It's like, why is that?
Yeah.
Why would they twice?
Yeah.
Like, that's not how you talk about that.
No,
It doesn't make any sense.
It's incredibly
at all.
traumatic, and he could have died.
Yeah, and it doesn't make sense. I don't even want to put effort into explaining why that's stupid that they said it like that, but it doesn't make any sense that they said it like that. It's the wrong time to do that joke. Right.